For more than 300 years, one navy dominated the world's oceans. Not because Britain was the largest country. In fact, Britain was only a small island nation. Yet its ships sailed across every major ocean, protected global trade, defeated powerful rivals, and helped build one of the largest empires in history. But how did Britain achieve this? How did a small island nation defeat some of the world's greatest powers and maintain control of the seas for centuries? The answer lies in a combination of geography, money, technology, strategy, and naval power. Clear context. Britain's greatest advantage was simple. It was an island. The sea protected Britain from invasion, but it also connected the country to the rest of the world. Britain depended on overseas trade, so controlling the oceans was essential. Its strategy was clear. If Britain controlled the sea, enemies would struggle to reach Britain, and British ships could reach almost anywhere in the world. This idea would eventually turn Britain into a global superpower. The first great test in 1588, England faced one of its greatest threats, the Spanish Armada. Spain was one of the most powerful empires in the world and attempted to invade England. The English fleet used speed, maneuverability, and knowledge of the waters around Britain. Then storms scattered the Spanish fleet. The invasion failed. This victory gave England confidence and proved an important lesson: control the sea, and you can protect your country from powerful enemies. But this was only the beginning. The oceans become a battlefield. Over the following centuries, the oceans became highways for global power. British ships carried goods across the Atlantic, around Africa, and toward Asia. But Britain faced powerful rivals, including the Dutch, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. Every trade route mattered. Every port could become a military base, and every ocean could become a battlefield. The Royal Navy grew stronger. While Britain discovered that naval power and national wealth were closely connected, the stronger the navy became, the safer British trade became, and the more trade Britain controlled, the more money it had to build an even stronger navy. Money built the navy. A powerful navy required enormous amounts of money. Warships needed timber, iron, weapons, sails, skilled workers, and thousands of sailors. Britain's growing economy helped provide all of these resources. London became a major centre of banking and international trade. The government could raise money to finance wars and build fleets. Meanwhile, merchants created trading networks across the world. The result was a powerful cycle. Trade created wealth. Wealth funded the navy protected trade. But money alone was not enough. Britain also needed organization. The navy that never stopped. The Royal Navy was much more than a fleet of ships. Britain built shipyards, naval bases, supply networks, and training systems. Ports such as Portsmouth, Plymouth, and Chatham became centers of naval power. British ships could be repaired and supplied even during long overseas missions. This allowed the Navy to operate thousands of miles from Britain. The goal was not to control every part of the ocean. It was to control the important ports, trade routes, and strategic locations. This was naval power on a global scale. The Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. Britain faced the combined fleets of France and Spain. Napoleon dominated much of Europe. And if the combined fleet defeated Britain, the threat of invasion would become much more serious. The British fleet was commanded by Admiral Horatio Nelson. At the Battle of Trafalgar, Nelson used an aggressive strategy that broke through the enemy fleet. The result was a decisive British victory. The French and Spanish fleets were defeated, and Napoleon's plans to invade Britain became far more difficult. Trafalgar proved that Britain did not need to conquer Europe to defeat its enemies. It could isolate them, disrupt their trade, and control the sea. How the Navy built an empire. The Royal Navy helped Britain project power across the world. British ships transported soldiers, protected merchants, secured trade routes, and connected distant territories, private, from the Caribbean to India, Africa to Australia. The Navy allowed Britain to influence events thousands of miles from home. The oceans were no longer separating Britain's territories. They were connecting them. This was one of the foundations of the British Empire. But the world was changing. The age of steam. For centuries, sailing ships depended on wind. Then steam engines transformed naval warfare. Ships could travel without depending entirely on the weather. Wood was gradually replaced by iron and steel, while new weapons made naval battles more powerful. Communication also improved. The Royal Navy had to adapt to the new age. Its greatest strength was not simply the ships it already possessed. It was the ability to constantly develop new technology. The end of dominance. By the 20th century, the balance of global power began to change. The world wars placed enormous pressure on Britain. The United States and other industrial powers became increasingly powerful. Maintaining a worldwide empire and navy became extremely expensive. After the Second World War, Britain's global dominance gradually declined. The Royal Navy remained important, but Britain could no longer control the world's oceans as it once had. The age of British naval supremacy was coming to an end. Conclusion: Britain's naval dominance was built over centuries. Its island geography created a need for naval protection. Trade created wealth. Financial institutions provided investment. Technology improved its ships. Naval bases extended its reach. And strategy turned the oceans into a weapon. For nearly 300 years, the Royal Navy helped Britain become one of the most powerful nations in history. Its ships connected continents, changed battles, and helped build a global empire. The greatest lesson is simple. A country does not need to control the most land to become a global superpower. Sometimes, the greatest power belongs to the nation that controls the routes connecting the world. If you enjoyed this documentary, like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more stories about the empires and nations that shaped our world. But Britain's rise did not depend on its navy alone. Behind this powerful fleet was another revolution, one involving coal, factories, steam engines, railways, and machines. So the next question is, how did Britain start the Industrial Revolution and use machines to transform the entire world? That story is coming next. Subscribe now, because Britain's rise to global power is only beginning. Which was Britain's greatest advantage, its navy, its economy, or its industrial revolution?